All right, folks, it's time for another edition of World Edition. We'll see if Steve Rao and some of the other folks up here. We do have Lee Newton Rhodes, Dan Worthington, and of course, one of the bosses of the network, Nick Palveda, here with me, and all in that space. And we'll see if Jacoby and others come in. But right now, we've got a good group of folks, and all in that way. We are now hearing that. There is a lot of things going on, including things going on with the debt ceiling. And definitely it looks like Biden and McCarthy will be heading into a conversation in today. And we're going to see if they actually get a ending to that particular situation and all along those lines. And it looks like both Kentucky and Philadelphia are holding crucial elections. So we're going to see what happens in those parts of the United States with those elections and what goes on in that space. And you do know that we have a team here in North Carolina that is going for the Eastern Conference Finals. So it does look like they have announced their schedule and they will start that road to that particular championship on a very near day. I think it might even start on tomorrow or something along those lines, but I'll definitely double check that and let y'all know that as well. And of course, some people will be paying attention to the NBA and what's going on in that space as they're now down to the final four. That's right. It's the Denver Nuggets against the Los Angeles Lakers, a rebuilt Los Angeles Lakers. And who knows, maybe they'll pull it off and get into a championship match as they'll be going up against the winner of the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat, which are a rematch of last week's Eastern Conference or last year's Eastern Conference Finals as well. So that's something that was going on in the sports world. So definitely I do pay attention to some of the things in that part of the world as well as other things also happening in the world, including that writer strike, which we talked about yesterday, and which that is continuing and all along those lines. So yes, there is a lot of things happening in the world, including, guess what? Another mass shooting. This time it's in New Mexico, where there were 3 dead and 2 wounded in a Farmington attack. So they're saying that the gunman who killed 3 people and injured 6 in Farmington, New Mexico, was 18 years old and used 3 firearms. So and then he was slain himself as well. And we'll be learning more about that. And of course, some people are trying to figure out why an 18-year-old has the kind of access that they do to those kinds of weapons and all along those lines. So definitely we are looking as even some of the political theater is going on as well, because apparently Rudy Giuliani has been sued for $10 million by a former aide over an alleged sexual assault. And definitely that is going on as this particular woman is suing Rudy Giuliani, saying he coerced her into sex and owes her $2 million in unpaid wages. That's a lot of money to be owed in unpaid wages. I'm still trying to figure out some of these legal things that go on and all in that space. I've got to ask Nick about this because I've also recently heard about a case involving a person in I believe the boxing field, if I remember correctly. But apparently his girlfriend is suing that particular individual for half. And I'm going like, wait a minute, you weren't the wife, you were the girlfriend, then you're still wanting half. But apparently, even if you're the girlfriend in a short-term relationship, because I don't think that that was a long-term relationship, you are still allowed to sue for that half and all in that space. But Nick is the attorney, so I'll bring him up and maybe he's got some thoughts around that and all along those lines. So definitely we're also seeing that some folks are slamming the FBI. Hey, Nick and Lee might be surprised by that because they are slamming them for their actions in the 2016 Russia investigation. So they are definitely after a 4-year probe, I guess they're not getting the kind of results that they thought they were going to get. And so they are being slammed in that sense. And we'll find out if folks have heard more about that and what is going on in that way and all along those kind of things. And we did hear in some good news in North Carolina that a South Elgin girl who was abducted at 9 was found safe 6 years later. Guess where? Right here in North Carolina. That's right. Kayla Unbehan was found safe in North Carolina after being abducted as a young child nearly 6 years ago. And this was a Illinois girl, or who was found after an Asheville store owner recognized her from a Netflix show. So it was one of those unsolved mysteries. And I guess that they were still having watched that. And then they were over there and saying what was going on in that space. And of course, there might be some other news stories that we get to as well, including the fact that apparently a staff member was attacked with a bat at a congressman's Virginia office. So Representative Gary Connolly's office was saying that a man with a baseball bat attacked a staffer over there, and all in that space. So we've talked about how it's not just guns that kill people, but it's also knives and other assault things that can be dangerous as well. And they were in the middle of the baseball season, so I guess somebody had a bat and decided to go in that kind of situation, and all along those lines. And last but not least, one of the things that I'm seeing from NPR, and then I'll bring up my fellow panelists and they might talk about some of these issues, as well as a number of other issues that are out there as well. And one of them, I'm actually curious to see what Dan's got to say about it, and I may get to that as well. But there is a Florida teacher that is under investigation after showing students a Disney movie. So a Florida teacher says she is under investigation after showing her fifth grade class a Disney movie that apparently has a gay character in it, and all along those lines. So there's this whole battle going on with Florida and Disney and DeSantis and a bunch of other things. So we're going to see what folks have to say about that and what other things are going on. So apparently there is a New York City housing migrant situation going on. So parents are protesting in New York City's plan to house migrants in standalone school gyms as the city eyes the influx of people that might be coming in that area. So migrants to be housed in 6 more New York City school gyms, and outraged parents are saying that the plan is just insane. Their words, not mine. So we'll definitely see what goes in that space. And Missouri school is going after a student who filmed a teacher's N-word rant. So apparently that particular teacher went and used the N-word, and all along those lines. And the thing that I was curious about, and then I'm trying to see if I can find it really quickly, and that's the one that I was going to bring up to Dan and others. It was one that I saw about the latest studies around religion, because apparently they're saying that there is some things going on in the religious world in the sense of how many people are switching their religions and what they're switching to. That's what I'm curious about finding out, and that's what I am looking for, is that particular news story and all along those lines, because I do know we have some folks that are very devout in their beliefs and all in that set. So that's the one that I was looking for, and I'm trying to see if I can find that. And while I'm looking for that, I might bring up the panelists as well and see what they've got to say about some of these other issues. And of course, we'll get to some of the world issues as well. So definitely that is one of the things that I was looking for, and I'm still continuing to look for as well. So I'm going to bring up some of the panelists and see what they've got to say about some of the news stories that I did bring up, and all along those lines while looking for that particular news story. So we'll just continue, and I'll bring up the other guests, including Dr. Rao. So Dr. Rao is with us. Hey, Dr. Rao, and I'm glad you're here.
I'm leaving town in a few minutes, but I just wanted to thank you. I'll be back on the show next week. Just lots of travel for work, going back up to Washington. But I think you covered all the great stories, and I think the big issue in Washington, obviously, is that I'm looking forward to the great NBA Finals. Hopefully, Lakers Celtics. Big news in North Carolina on them overriding the governor's veto on the anti-abortion bill, which would take it down from 20 weeks to 12. Everyone's watching very closely what's going to happen there, and of course, debt ceiling. Of course, we know what's going to happen, but talks with leaders of Congress and the Senate on that, and it's interesting. Just lots of interesting things going on, and I look forward to a good show. But
Steve,
go ahead.
I just got a question for Steve. Actually, the panel. Rahm Emanuel is famous for saying, "Never let a crisis go to waste." We have a crisis now on the southern border. We have a crisis now in Washington with the debt ceiling. Should the two not be tied together in terms of do things now? Otherwise, we're not going to get this chance again if you just let the debt ceiling come and go and just ignore what's going on the southern border. Am I wrong?
Yeah, well, I think with the southern border, and Mark, I got busy this week. I think we are going to try to bring in some guests next week to talk about that. I've reached out to Senator Tillis' office, but it is a real mess. I mean, about a couple million coming on the border.
Intentionally.
Senator Tillis and Senator Sinema, along with now Congressman Nickel and Don Davis from North Carolina, are supporting keeping Title 42 in place, or at least being able to expel migrants back to their country and have them go through the process of asylum, but not for reasons of a public health emergency. But this would actually help mitigate a problem because it's getting so bad, and doing nothing about it is going to just make it worse for those individuals. Just, so hopefully we can come together and address the situation. And as a Democrat, I can tell you that I agree with Congressman Nickel, who's supporting, working with the Republicans to address this issue. So I don't think we should ignore the problem.
In terms of the border, since Title 42 was lifted, border crossings have dropped 50%.
Have they? I don't know.
Huh?
Have they? I did not know that.
God.
Yeah, that actually was. That's what's been reported since 2 days ago, that border crossings have dropped 50% after Title 42 was lifted. Don't get me wrong. I agree that the border is an issue, but that's been an issue for decades, and we've always kicked the can down the road. And every president, Obama, Clinton, Bush, Trump, every president has kicked the can down the road. We've never taken the time because we have problems where you have this is your area, Nick, with the whole litigation around.
You have really horrible immigration laws, laws in the United States. And I'll tell you what, I've had to deal with them because I've hired people from overseas in my company, and the process that we have to go through. Now, I was able to get them in under HB1 visas, and I shouldn't have to even go through that garbage to do it. One came from South Africa, another came from Canada. But what you have is a policy that's absolutely horrible, and that's causing most of the problem down at the border. The other problem we have is horrible policies with Latin America in general. In other words, why are they coming here? In other words, you're treating the symptoms, but not the disease. The disease. Completely agree. The diseases, and you can look at one failed state, Venezuela. Venezuela, for everybody here, has the largest oil reserves in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. Okay, more than anybody. Unfortunately, they also have a very corrupt government, and unfortunately, a lot of the people do not get the benefits of the largest oil reserve country in the world. And because of the poverty, squalor, bad policies in Venezuela, these people are leaving Venezuela, not because they want to come here. It's because they're being squeezed out of their own home country. Then you go to El Salvador, the worst crime country in the world. Okay. You go to Haiti, one of the worst crime countries in the world. If you look at our backyard is full of failed policies in Latin America. We don't have the strength or willpower to fix these problems. And because of that, you now have these people coming to the border. And what are they coming for? Are they bringing drugs, crime? No, that's Trump garbage. They're getting away from drugs and crime. That is the reality. See, if you listen to Trump, listen to what he says, and just realize either he's doing it or it's the complete opposite of what he's saying. So when he says that, he's just completely lying. The real reason 90+% of them are coming here is they want to escape drugs, crime, and poverty. It's real simple. And it's because of the failed leadership of America, Democrats and Republicans, and it's the failed policies that we have in Latin America. And I know Sasha's rolling around here somewhere and is all interested in Ukraine. Okay, but the fact is, Ukraine is on the other side of the bloody world. Latin America is right bloody here, and we're not doing anything about it. So,
Nick,
we need to get on the.
I'm sorry, Jacoby, you go first.
Oh, I was just going to ask Nick to stay on that whole failed policy issue, because there are a lot of, I completely agree with that, because those policies have been around forever. but also what about the positions that need to be filled in terms of the backlog that's there to process people? Because you need the lawyers, the judges, and so on and so forth to process these individuals. How, I mean, in your opinion, being in the law field, how do we fill those positions?
Well, don't send 1,500 troops there. Send 1,500 immigration attorneys there to process the people, and administrative, they call them administrative law judges, to bring most of these people into the United States to take, which we've gone over here, jobs that Americans just bloody will not do, you know. And these people do it and they're happy with it. I mean, you know, it's amazing. They're happy to work here and we're not. So the thing is, bring them in and let them do the work here that we need, because our Social Security system, because we didn't have enough baby boomers. Okay.
Nick, what about exchange? Now, those people, as you say, rightly so, they are willing to work.
They're willing to work, right?
That Americans don't want to touch.
No, so, Americans don't want to do that type of work. They're willing to go out and they're willing to pick the oranges.
Here's the deal, very simple deal. Exchange deal. You bring people who are happy to work on this job that Americans won't touch, and you send Americans to those countries so they will work there, whatever they like to do or whatever they don't.
Or we can send them all to Canada.
Sure. Canada needs people. Please send us as many people as you can.
We love it. We'll love it. We'll send them all north.
It's a tiny population.
We'll share the wealth.
We'll share the wealth of workers.
We need all kinds of people from rich countries.
Yeah, I'm really in favor of that. It works.
Yeah, I mean,
Nick?
the thing is, there are a lot of jobs here that employers.
You know, they should have employment specialists at the border to place these folks into jobs.
I agree.
I mean, yeah. Why not? You know. Doesn't that make sense?
Here's a question. A reason.
Now, and by the way, Dan, that would be something positive. Employment.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Border.
You know, McDonald's, they need people. I mean, look at that, and they pay $15 an hour.
Go tell your friend Wiley to get off
on the employment issue, Nick. On the employment issue, because again, border policies and everything else are all good. We all agree that it's a problem. Is it possible that businesses, those big businesses, exacerbate that problem by hiring undocumented workers, and then when those undocumented workers get in trouble, and the businesses who hire them don't get in trouble? So is it possible that setup is wrong?
But for the most part, employers want to do the right thing for the most part, Jatovi, if there's a way to do it. I mean, we went and paid the money for immigration attorneys to process our people in through HB1 visas so they could come to work here. And they were good workers. As a matter of fact, one of them retired, was with me for 10 years as my executive secretary from South Africa. I mean, and they're happy to work. Okay. They're not like Americans. These people like to work. They're happy to work. They're not like Americans. Bring them in. And by the way, whoever said employment specialists at the border, great idea. There's tons of jobs available in America. Thank you, Dan. The Republicans and Democrats agree. Stick the employment specialists at the border as they come in, find out what their skill sets are, match them with a employer, and send them on their way. You, of course, once you do the criminal background check, assuming you can do that in Latin America, and then you're good to go. But the policy we have right now, there is no policy. It's just all trash. In other words, if you ever look at it, our immigration policy were built in the 19th century. It deals with quotas from different countries. So if you're coming from Nepal, you get in because nobody applies from Nepal. But if you come from Honduras, you don't get in because too many applicants from Honduras. I mean, you got really horrible policies. You're not using your technology to match employers with people that want to work, and you have no leadership in Washington, D.C. Go tell your friend Wiley.
See, it's cheaper for us to pay to keep them in their countries than it is for them to come to our country. If we don't need them for their employment, they don't have the skills.
Yeah, but Dan, as you know, we need workers here. I mean,
we do. But you know, there comes a point where there is a saturation, because remember, we have many legal immigrants who are also in need of those same jobs.
Yeah,
and we don't want to undermine them or their ability to make a living at the same time. So there has to be a balance in
Right.
care. Now, the other issue is there are many folks who are coming in here illegally from China, Iran, other countries that, may be troublesome. A lot of military age young men from China, for example, are coming. I think we need to ask the question, why is that? They pay $30,000 a piece to get in here, and somebody's making that payment. And so, you have to ask your question, what's going on there? There are a number of issues that need to be addressed with respect to the national security interest of the United States vis-a-vis these folks that are coming in illegally.
But
But some of these people, Dan, hold on a second. So, Dan, hold on a second.
Track everybody through technology today.
No, but-
Everybody
Hey,
documented
Nick and Dan, hold on a second. 'Cause
can line up to hire these people, and then
Maybe we put them in our military. I mean, that probably work for the
But Nick and Dan, the question I've got to ask, and it's actually two questions, is one, are we given enough say to what the corporations are doing? Because some of these corporations are letting folks in and they are not being punished, even though they know what they are doing intentionally and all in that space, because they are trying to find a cheap labor source. And then on the second issue that you brought up, I mean, I have one that lives literally above me and everything. Some of the folks that are coming in from China and other places are coming into our universities, and they are then returning back to their home. So are you saying that we need to curtail?
Well, no, these
there
folks
are a
have
number of folks that are
visas.
coming from Beijing and other
Okay,
places.
so let's be realistic. They normally have visas to study in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're here legally because you have a visa to study in the United States at a U.S. university. That's legal.
Totally
I have
legal, but
I have to point out that, I mean, one thing that Nick points out, the technology is there for us to be able to document. I mean,
You can document
there
and track. Hey,
Yeah,
hey,
I mean,
Groovy, you can
that's
track
what-
them off their. You can track them off their cell phones. It's
I mean,
amazing to
that's-
see. No matter
that's
how
what
poor
actually-
you are, you have a bloody cell phone.
I
Or
mean,
they
that's-
give them one.
that's-
Or they
well,
give
the
them
thing
one, right?
is,
Or you just give them a cell phone.
many of them actually have them, but again,
track.
that's what actually is going on for every current citizen in the U.S. in the first place. I mean, you have the ability, that data and technology is there,
That's right.
but
Yeah,
I
they
think one
track
thing
us.
that we have to get away from, which
they can
Dan,
actually listen to us.
I agree that there are the few that may come that may be bad, but we cannot say that many are coming that are
Right.
bad. You can't say that because then you demonize the 90 some odd percent, and it becomes. And I think that's one of the problems with our political system. And
They find people who are on the terrorist list every day that are coming through.
Yeah,
No.
and I mean,
So we
obviously,
don't
those are the
have-
ones you stop.
Yeah, you have a terrorist list, and those people get stopped. It's
Toby?
not that everybody from these terrorist lists are flying through every day like thousands of people.
And you have a
That's not
tracking
happening.
system.
Well,
You
but
have
then you
all
got
this
this guy
technology.
that murdered these 4 immigrants in Texas who had been expelled 4 times. I mean, ridiculous, isn't it? There needs to be better accountability.
You point
for
out,
people
but the
who are
the
kicked
problem-
out.
But the problem, Dan, you're taking that one individual and you're saying every one that's coming.
Well, I'm
through,
not saying anything.
or
I'm just
many
saying
You can
that are
if you
coming
let
through.
the lives of
people, then
those
you
who
can
are
focus
lost.
in
You
on
can't
that
do
one.
that.
who are lost because of this one bad act.
Yeah. In other words,
I mean, it's a problem, right?
No,
but
no,
you
it's
do
not.
just stop
It's
one
you-
bad apple.
you can't say that one bad apple is the majority of individuals coming in. You can't
No.
do that.
No, I
Oh,
don't.
no,
think he's
I'm just
that,
saying,
but you have to
but
have a
look at
system.
that one case,
You have
right?
to have
That's
a
what I'm
system
saying.
that actually stops that bad apple. You can't let the bad apple destroy the whole apple cart.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That's
Nick.
what
I
And
agree
the
with
thing
I
you.
is-
agree with him on that.
The-
I agree, Nick.
The thing is, though,
Don't let this
there
bad
are,
apple keep
there
going
are
back
many
and
bad
forth.
apples that attempt to come through.
Yeah. Well,
One
that-
slipping through
That guy
is
came
not
through
saying that
illegally.
We have enough of our own bad apples, right?
Okay, well, that's
You
right.
are
We need
exactly
to-
right, Dan. You are
I
absolutely
would
We
right.
have enough
And
of our
bad
own
what
apples.
bad
The
apples.
Russian
what I
side of
saw
Ukraine.
yesterday,
We can send
what
the
we
bad
saw
apples to
yesterday,
Canada. We can send our
there's a
bad
new-
apples to
I would give the bad
a
apple
new
a one-way
allegation.
ticket to Bakhmut. and see how
There
well
are new allegations by a
Get to the meat
woman,
grinder, right?
Rudy Giuliani. And
But
one
again-
of the allegations, of course, it's sexual.
Send them to Russia.
The other. Hold on. Apparently, Rudy Giuliani offered whoever wants to get a pardon, it's $2 million, which would be evenly split between him and old Donnie Trump. Okay, here is the deal. That will go through the court system very quickly. She already sworn all the depositions and so on. So this is going to be just fantastic show. Absolutely.
Sasha,
$2 million. Hey, that's really cheap.
yeah, that's
Jacoby,
really
the vast
good.
majority of people
Hold on a
coming in the
second.
southern border, I agree with you, are probably good people. But the vast majority of people coming to the southern border are breaking the law. Am I wrong? And
The
once
vast
they come in
majority of
here,
people that come across the southern border
Lee,
are
I'm
actually
breaking the
But
law.
Lee, what's your point?
All of them together are not breaking the law as much as
They're
one
here
man.
illegally.
Donald
law.
Trump,
Law.
forget about these poor people. What kind of laws they're breaking?
They
Trump
are
is
changing
breaking
the law because
fundamental
these are
laws.
these are
They're
government.
breaking the
There's
immigration law.
nothing can do about it.
Government bureaucrats.
Lee,
have to
what
work
you're
all the
trying
time
to do
keep
We should
changing
send them to
the
Canada,
rules.
like I said.
Hey, Lee,
Sorry,
you
one
and
at a
I
time. I can't hear.
Hold on, one at a
I'm
time.
going to make up the rules as we go along. How do you like that? And then you're going to break them and I say, "Oh, you broke the law." That's what's going on. See, the problem is people don't realize the law can be a jerk, and we used to call it something else in laws. And literally, the bureaucrats keep changing the goalposts. You should know that. When you work in taxes, all of a sudden the law is this way. Oh no, it's that way. Who made up the law? The IRS.
100%.
Right? They do that
100%.
in immigration too. Oh, the law's here. No, we changed it. Now you have to go to an embassy to ask for asylum or you don't get in. Well, somebody didn't get the message. It goes to the border. Well, you can't now come in for 5 years. That garbage is going on right now by the administration.
Does anyone know what the law is now, Nick?
No,
What is the
actually, the
southern
Biden
border?
administration is letting everybody in.
They're not
They're
clear.
just
on
letting
the law.
everybody in.
I think they're
It's
playing
not
it.
just the Biden administration.
They're letting everybody in.
Dan, that's not true.
Before we get
No,
to
they
the
are. They're
other-
letting everybody in.
Dan,
Biden
you
administration
keep
is
saying
letting
that
everybody
doesn't
in.
change the fact that it's
Yeah.
not
Letting
true.
everybody in.
Dan,
Well,
come
saying
in,
it
they release
repeatedly
them. That's
doesn't
how it
change the
works.
fact.
Joe.
No, that's how
I
it's
think
working.
Joe knows what the law is.
That's how
guarantee
it's
you bring Joe
working.
Biden in there.
No, it's not,
you know,
Dan.
immigration laws he won't
So-
have.
Hold
So
on one
Lee,
second.
just to
One
point
at a
out,
time.
hold on real quick, Mark. Let me answer Lee real quick. Just 1 second, since Lee asked. Lee, just what Nick was talking about, how the goalposts keep moving. We sit here every day monitoring what's going on. We have the advantage of seeing that every single day and seeing these changes. So us going to the border would be different, and we would understand that things would change. Many of these migrants who are searching just for help, begging. I mean, they're refugees, as Nick points out. 90 some odd % are just looking for a better life and struggling.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt
So
that.
what I'm saying is that a lot of them don't get this message. So
Yeah,
what
and
I
you're
got that.
saying-
I
so
got
what
that.
you're saying- hold on. What
Do you know
you're
how hard
saying
it
is
is
that
on the
we
border
should
to go to
treat
the
them as
embassy and ask
illegal
for asylum?
individuals
They're
in
going all the way
life
back to Mexico
because
City,
they
baby.
don't have the ability or don't have the foresight to see what's going on with these moving goalposts.
I got all you're saying, Jacoby. I got all that. When they
So-
get here, do we stamp them legal or illegal?
We begin the process, and this is what falls on us. So, if we're the ones who are at fault for making these individuals illegal in our minds.
I agree with you. I agree
So-
with that.
We're all in agreement, Counselor. And when is Congress ever?
No,
gonna-
they're here illegally because we're not here legally.
Because they're giving court dates, are they not?
I don't think they're giving.
Well, I think
I get court dates in
they're not getting
2027.
court dates. No.
Guys, I
Should
think-
be
Sometimes
I
the
think
court
we're-
dates
They
are
haven't got
illegal.
time for that. They're too
We don't
busy
have
just letting them in.
administrative law judges.
Hold on a second.
Too
Steve
busy
has a
getting
point.
on the
Real
cell
quick,
phone.
Steve has
and letting
something to
them
say.
in.
Dan, you keep saying the same point. Let's let that
No,
go.
I
Steve.
mentioned the cell phones this time.
Steve,
No, all I was going to say, and I'm sorry, guys, I've been a bit busy today with some other things, but before I leave, I think one of the things I think is important to understand is that there's been confusion about the difference between immigration and asylum. So we often forget that asylum was created after World War II when they were bringing the Jewish folks, from Germany or Russia into the U.S. And there had to be real reasons, stringent reasons of persecution, torture, murder. And now what's happened is the situations are so bad in these countries that they're coming here not going through the laws of the immigration process, just crossing the border, seeking asylum, but they haven't been granted asylum. And so this is the problem. And so you can't just cross the border and say, I'm here for asylum. There's a process. Now, I will
So
say
what's
that
their status?
their status is illegal immigrants, and that's why they're basically having to leave and go back. No immigrant could just come into America without going through the legal process of, going through the paperwork. Many people from India, like my parents, came in Morrisville. We have immigrants coming in every day, but they get their H-1B, they get their green card, they get their visa, and they get their status. Now, with that being said, I will say this. There was recently a really good, I'm going to bring him on as a guest probably next week, Abhi Rao from Home for Distant Shores, which is a film festival that he started. And it's about the stories of refugees. He's used film to tell the story. One thing I said when I was on the panel was that, for example, in 2012, there was a refugee that was in Burlington. I think his name was Ibrahim Saleh. And he was assigned a caseworker who helped him find a place and get a job. And he worked 3 jobs. And now he runs his own towing company. So if you can assign a process and get a caseworker assigned and provide work permits, these people can bring, let's not forget that refugees do bring about $1 billion of revenue to the country if they're working and everything. So it's not, I think that the other side has made it that every single person coming over here is a rapist or a murderer. I mean, they're leaving like the worst situation in America and, in their countries and coming to America to try to make it big. So I think it's proven that immigrants tend to be, or people coming from other countries tend to be very good entrepreneurs, tend to be very successful doing these jobs that we don't want to do. But there has to be some process around it. You can't just come in. So I think this is the problem that we're having. There's process and structure and law. I commend Tom Tillis for working with the Democrats to try to come up with a solution. And I agree with the senator. You can't just say, everybody come on in, just cross over. I mean, there's no case
Steve,
for
I hear what you're saying, but
Steve
there's
right
also
there, I think shows. Oh, I was just going to say, Steve, you were spot on. We need that process. And I think that's where we as the country has failed because we have not instituted a process ever, really. We have not established that true process without moving the goalposts, changing the policies from one administration to the next administration, demonizing people and when we try and create a process, then you get people saying, oh, well, you're letting everybody in for free, that's not true. You're getting people who want to say, well, these people are just illegal. Well, they're trying to figure out a process. Let's help them. And I think that's where we as a country could, be a lot better by providing that process. So yeah, I think you're spot on.
The other thing I was going to bring up is, and I brought up a couple of other times when we talked about immigration, is there are still some serious biases that exist in immigration as well, because there are certain countries that are seen more favorably than others. And so we've also got to work on some equity in the immigration process, because somebody that is immigrating from some of the poorer nations definitely has a harder time than, say, somebody from India and some of the more affluent nations and all in that space. So there's definitely, you can even see the contrast between the way that the Haitians were treated and the Cubans were treated when they have immigrated in. And that wasn't even under Biden. That was under some of the previous administrations, but yes, it's still going on now as well. So we've also got to address some bias that exists within the immigration process.
Mark, I agree with you, and you have a valid point, but should we not have a say in the numbers, how many a year could come in? Just open the gates and everybody come in, whoever wants? Is that fair game? Can we assimilate those people and incorporate them into society, schools, jobs, housing at the same time?
We have to have.
There has to be limitations. Definitely there have to be limitations. I don't know if we can have a totally open border. So there's got to be a process that goes in there. And I'm sure that there are cap numbers. As a matter of fact, I know that there are cap numbers that exist. And that is part of what goes on is when we cap those numbers, then we also need to be equitable in the way that they are capped, because there are sometimes unfairnesses in who is allowed. So let's just say that we're only allowing, just to pick a random number, let's say Texas is only allowing 100,000 in and everything. Are we saying that the vast majority of those are going to come from Mexico, and we're going to ignore Venezuela and some of the other Latin American countries that are down there as well? So I'm just saying there's got to be a better policy put in there if we're going to have caps on the numbers.
Yeah.
This is just a general question. Nick spoke before, but we don't have a policy how to deal with failed countries like Venezuela and Haiti and what have you. I'm not speaking from a knowledge, but it's a question for you guys. How much of those failed policies or those failed countries do we have blood on our hands? Are we complicit in?
Oh, we've got tons of blood on our hands. I mean, part of what happens is that sometimes we are backing the dictators that are the ones that failed those countries. If you want to look at Venezuela, we were definitely major backers of some of the dictators that were in those countries because they were considered a strategic allies of ours, and that we felt it better to if I can use this analogy, sleep with the enemy versus sleeping with a friend and everything. So there have been definitely cases where we have literally slept with the enemy because we felt that it was in our strategic best interest.
Let's also be very honest and very clear. The fentanyl problem, the drug problem, and stuff like that. What do we have in the States? We do have a fentanyl and a drug problem. Why? Because we are buyers of the fentanyl. And
we have a demand.
So we these cartels and everything else, yes, we are part of that problem, and we have to be honest and open about that. Because yes, we do have I mean, how many and this same thing with the guns. I mean, we are the number one place for guns, and we are the number one place to supply guns. So
and I mean, part of that comes
the solution.
I agree with you, but in fairness, though, I can't compare the two. Guns can be used for a lawful, positive purpose. Fentanyl, I don't see it.
Well, I think we should take some of our guns across the border into Mexico,
having all the weaponry and so on and so forth. Right? A lot of that weaponry.
We should send the military to Mexico to clean
up the same thing goes for the military.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Dan. But and I'm just going to put it out there bluntly. I think that there are people on the panel that may agree with me, some that may not. But if we've got drug problems, whether that's illegal drugs or whether that is things like fentanyl and everything along those lines, and even if we've got problems with gun trafficking and things along those lines, if you know or if you have met people that have gotten out of gang situations and things of that kind of environment, and I've had the pleasure or displeasure in some cases of meeting some of those individuals. I don't know any of them that actually own a major plane or a major way of getting it from point A to point B. So that implies to me that in some degrees, some of our government forces are actually helping in the support.
Well, no, the cartels are very wealthy.
Point B, whether they want to admit it or not.
The cartels are very wealthy, right? They have distribution networks. They have ways of penetrating the border. They have lots of money and influence, both in Mexico and in the United States. I think that we're the biggest problem that we're facing with respect to the drugs are the cartels and our own corrupt politicians on both sides. But I think that if we were to go in with the military and take out the cartels, that would stop a lot of this crap.
No.
But how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that if the government and the military is involved in that part of the trade? If you want to go back to Vietnam, some of the biggest drug dealers were actually involved in our military and all.
The CIA definitely was. We know that.
You can't take the military in to go, have a war against a citizen of another country. You can't do
the
that.
permission of the government
head of a cartel or not.
You can, and we've done it before.
No, you can't. It's breaking international law.
Iraq, Iran,
No, Iraq was not going in after a private citizen.
No, these are
not
criminals.
Going in after a private
these are criminals,
citizen.
Jacoby. I know
it doesn't matter. You cannot just take the U.S. military.
If you get the permission of the government, of Mexico to
No.
go in on a joint operation, you can do it. Oh God, you can.
No, you
There's
can't.
no reason why
Dan, you have
can't.
to label them as a terrorist like you did with Osama bin Laden. You can't just do it
They
against
are
citizens.
terrorists. They are terrorists. They are terrorists. They're creating terror in the United States, death and carnage to American citizens in the United States.
Dan, you literally cannot do that. It's breaking international law for you to do that.
You can if you have the permission of the host country.
No, you can't. You still can't.
The
You-
Mexican
you-
government invited
Here's a
us
question.
in.
Here's a question. If perchance, if there were a
This is gonna be good.
an individual that China really wanted to go after, are you going to say that it's okay for the Chinese military to have a war against a private citizen in the U.S.?
Well, that's not the question. We're talking about
It is the
criminals
question.
Same
and
thing.
The
terrorists.
question Jacoby's asking you, Dan.
Terrorists in Mexico perpetuating drug and smuggling and
Dan,
also bringing
would you
illegals
be
over
okay
the border,
if
getting paid for
China
it.
were to bring charges against an American and bring in the military to attack that American?
Oh, there's a process for that. It's called extradition.
So
But that's not what
you
we're doing,
are
Dan.
against it.
No, I'm saying that
You can't have it both ways. You can't say we can extradite a citizen
could
out of
invite-
the U.S., so they
could-
can't do that.
could
But they
invite
can't extradite a
the
citizen
U.S.
out of the
military to go and to clean
You
up the drug
can't have it
cartel with
both
the
ways,
Mexican
Dan.
military.
That's the thing. Dan, you were then
Jacoby
saying
and
that
Lee,
it's
along
okay
those same
for
lines.
another foreign country to say that, hey, we hate this American citizen.
Well,
We've
we've invaded Mexico
our
before.
country's military
For
and
far less
attack
worse,
that
right?
citizen. You're saying that that is legal.
No, I'm saying that the solution to the drug problem is to go and take
No,
the cartels out.
Dan, listen. You are saying that we should take our U.S. military and go into a foreign country and attack a citizen.
No,
of
I'm
that foreign
saying
country.
our military should work with, or our White House should work with the president of Mexico and create a
Dan,
joint task
You
force
are
in
saying
Mexico
that our
to go
military
take
should
out the
be
drug trade.
used to create a joint task force
are
to
terrorists.
whatever country
They're
and
they're
attack
there
a private
creating
citizen
criminal
of another country.
behavior. They're running drugs. They're
Dan,
creating
stop,
the fentanyl
listen.
problem.
Dan,
No,
we
listen
did
to
all
me.
that.
I'm telling
Listen.
you. See, I know you're all pro crime and all this other stuff, but
Dan, you
seriously,
can't draw that conclusion just because he disagrees with you. You can't say that.
Well, do you agree or disagree with him on this one, Lee?
I agree with him, but I think for your solution, what we should do is incentivize Mexico to deal with the problem, and we should deal with the problem in our land.
Yeah,
with
but the
demand.
problem is the drug cartel is bribing the politicians and corrupting them. So the cartels and the Mexican government are one and the same. Just what
This
similar
could
to the
be.
United States.
That's their problem.
Well, but
And
they're
we're gonna
making
have
it
to-
our problem, Lee. They're making it our problem.
Well, I understand that, but that doesn't give us the right to go there against private citizens. I actually agree with Jacoby on this one.
Well, you do if you get the permission of the government to go in.
We
got
should
joint task
incentivize
force.
the government to go
We
in
got
or deal
joint
with the
task
government.
force all the time in Mexico. We've got people there now.
That may be true. We had people doing in laws during Vietnam. We were denying we were doing it. That doesn't make it legal.
I want to wish you all a good rest of the show. I will see you next week and keep up the good work. Looking forward to bringing some good guests next week. And yesterday I hosted a delegation from Indonesia, and that's a country I want to give everyone an assignment. Let's learn more about Indonesia. It was an international visit to learn about data and AI. It was in Morrisville, but never really talked much about Indonesia. I was thinking, 280 million people in Indonesia, so that's a big country, but like many, many islands. And I used to be.
Didn't Barack Obama spend part of his childhood there?
Who's that? I don't know.
Barack Obama, didn't he spend part of his childhood there?
Yeah, I think so. But we'll be talking about Russia, Ukraine, and then.
Oh, he was born in Kenya, so.
Oh, there you go.
Don't even go there, Jacoby.
Okay, Dan.
Thank you guys
To
so
his
much.
grandma anyway. I mean,
Be
I don't
safe, and
Steve, we'll miss you.
know.
more. And I'll
His
be
grandma said he was.
back. There you go.
Take care.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, take it easy, Steve. A quick question, and it's what I alluded to earlier.
I was born in Hawaii. I've got the certificate to prove it.
And you got the certificate. Dan, quick question for you, and it's what I was alluding to earlier. And I know we've only got a few more minutes to go and everything, but there is some conversation about the evangelical vote and the importance of the evangelical vote and all in that space. And there are even presidential candidates that are trying to maneuver themselves, particularly on the Republican Party, one way or the other. And I know that the Christianity Today editor-in-chief, Russell Moore, was recently on Meet the Press and said that there is no way in hell, to borrow that phrase and everything, that he is going to vote for Trump, because he said that he can't speak for only all evangelicals. He can only speak for himself. And Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no, and I'll let my never be never. So he's definitely saying that he will never vote for Trump because of some of the things that he is finding. And I know that even Pence is trying to position himself as kind of the moral alternative to Trump and all along those lines. And I did say that there has been a rising number of people that are having conversations about their own religion and their own religion affiliations and everything. And that is also something that people are wondering about, because apparently nearly a quarter of Americans say they used to follow a different religious tradition or denomination than the one they practice now, a percentage that keeps growing. And the jump in religious switching comes as many Americans say they no longer believe in their initial religious teachings, or in many cases disagree with a religious stance against the whole LGBTQ plus people. And they are saying that more Americans are turning away from Christianity and understand themselves as unaffiliated with any religious or as religious nuns, or as in having no
nuns.
None is in not having
Nonism.
and all of that. I thought you would get that. And this was actually done by a nonpartisan group called the Public Religion Research Institute, and they surveyed people across the country and found that a quarter of Americans say they changed religious traditions or denominations, and that's a 50% jump from 2021. So the question I was bringing with all of this is this evangelical push going to be worth it from particularly the Republicans and other folks as well? Because a lot of folks, including the Gen Zs, are saying that they are switching and shunning religion. And part of the reason that they are pulling is because of the political view. So they are saying that their churches or congregations have become too political. That's 17% of them. That is the reason that they have switched. And some of them have stopped believing in the religious teachings that they were taught. That's 56%. And then 30% had negative religious teachings about or treatments of the LGBTQ community. And that's the reason that they've been pulling back from religion. So is the evangelical push a solid strategy by the Republicans? That's my question.
I think it's a solid strategy by everybody. If you're going to look at the people who left religion, did they look at the people who came to religion, so-called born again? Did they look at that population who were brought up secular but found God?
I'll have to look and see. I know that this particular one was by the thing, and they did say that a lot of folks had been pulling away, but I'm sure that there are some.
A lot of people are disenchanted for various reasons, and I get that.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Was a lot of people are disenchanted, but yes, there is a born again movement, and I mean that's part of the evangelical movement that has been even dealing with the issue around abortion and stuff like that. And that's
not just Christianity. That's Judaism. That's Islam. Yeah. Various religions. People were brought up secular, but for some reason they feel a connection later on in life.
Right. I can definitely agree with you on that part. But even on the
Trump isn't doing well in Utah right now.
Who's not doing well in Utah?
Trump. He's not polling well in Utah because I think people are outraged with his behavior.
His potty mouth?
Yeah, and the fact that he's been indicted and also found guilty and other things. I mean, he's just not doing well right now. He's just not doing.
So what are they going to do then when the Bidens are indicted? Also, not vote for anybody?
Yeah, I know, but I don't think they're going to support Biden.
Here's a question on the Biden thing.
They're just going to vote for another Republican. I don't know what it will be.
What's Biden going to be indicted for?
It looks like Hunter is going to be indicted, and it's a family affair.
For what?
For what? Unreported income, if that's nothing else.
There's nothing there, Jacoby. Don't even bother.
Are you talking about what
the $10 million
are you talking
illegal
about
money.
the
Hold on. I
what's his name
just
doing his
Treasury records in terms of money coming in from China, Ukraine, Romania.
wait a
so you're
second.
talking about the hard
There's
drive
no there there.
They're talking about where they
These
had
are
the
not the
leaker?
drones you're looking for.
Hold on. I got to figure out what exactly you're talking about. Are you talking about the hard drive thing and the leaker?
No. I'm talking about the Treasury records, funds coming in to their various Biden members and not being reported as income.
Yeah, you talking about that group of individuals, the senators who are trying to do that investigation? You talking about that investigation?
I believe we're probably talking about the same thing.
It's the House
investigation-
actually.
Yeah, so the House
The FBI is looking into it also.
Hold on. So the House investigation is truly a joke if you actually look at what they have.
No, it's not a joke.
Granted.
I mean, because I'm just trying to point out, Dan, I'm being very serious. Because if you look at it, what they're saying, and this is why I had a problem with what the Republican Party did when they were trying to come on board and doing this whole vengeance tour. And this is why and again, we can talk policies and everything. We can have a debate on that. But we have to look at the reality of the situation and what they're trying to do when they talk about revenge tour, and that's all they're doing. So the whole Biden investigation that they're doing, the leaker that they had is now disappeared. They don't know
I
what the
imagine
leaker
he
is.
has been disappeared.
No, he has. You're making a conspiracy, Dan.
Jacoby,
Also, the hard drive that the leaker said that he had, the leaker already was quoted as saying that he did not like what was going on with the hard drive because of the potential things that were put into the laptop and being told that was coming off of the laptop. So he did not like that. So the leakers disappeared. The hard drive is not there. The individual leading the actual investigation has had 4 years and has gone on TV and said that we're still just getting started. We will show the evidence when we have the evidence, which if you listen to
there's an overwhelming amount of data
that it's not there. So they're just making a smoke
amount of data.
saying, hey, listen to this.
let's make the long story short. Just breaking news. IRS dismissed all personnel involved in any investigation of Hunter Biden and whoever is.
Not yet.
No, dismissed. Done.
They did, Dan, they did. They dismissed it. That's the problem.
They just dismissed it.
Okay.
It was in Fox News this morning.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Dismissed it and everything.
Yeah,
Hey, quick question.
I wouldn't be
5 or 6
surprised.
minutes to go, but one of the questions I was curious about is there's a issue that is out there that a lot of people are thinking could be a determining factor, that the
What
women
about the
vote
10
may be
million?
part of the determining factor and everything. How important, and I know it's a bunch of guys here, I wish that we had some women here, but how important do you think in this election the abortion issue is going to be? Because we know that North Carolina governor is dealing with a lot of things with the abortion ban, and South Carolina House Democrats recently filed like some ridiculous amount of amendments, like 1,000, to stop a 6-week ban that they were having in place and everything. So how vital of an issue is this going to be in the upcoming elections, and where do we think
Mark, which election?
The
Which
national
election, Mark?
The national
Federal?
election.
It shouldn't be relevant. It's not a federal issue. Why is it relevant?
So it's relevant because the GOP has made it a federal issue. The GOP once it's
not a federal issue.
Got overturned, which it should never have been overturned. But once it got overturned,
then
been. Lindsey Graham has been campaigning that we should ban it in every state. So
No, I got that.
So
I got what Lindsey Graham wants to do. I think you're correct, Jacoby. I'm saying from a strictly constitutional standpoint, should it not be
It's a
irrelevant
state
what
issue.
the president's views are on abortion, whether he's full term or from birth, conception? Well, should be relevant, should it not?
Oh, I agree that it should be relevant because the
Irrelevant.
No,
it should be
irrelevant.
relevant because the views
Why?
on abortion matter.
Not a state,
From a
not
federal
state-
standpoint?
state issue. It's
From
not
a federal
issue.
standpoint, yes, because the GOP
Why?
is pushing for a federal ban.
No,
That's why.
forget about what they're pushing for. I don't think they should be pushing for it. Let's say they wouldn't be.
But
It's
we
not.
can't
It's
forget
not
it.
the
It's
federal
being
government's
pushed.
place. It's not the
So
federal
because
government's
it's being
place.
pushed, we cannot forget it. The leader of the party, if the leader of the party, the president, is for is already trying to put a ban on abortions and campaigning
is
on
that?
putting a ban on abortions,
Is that
should be
Biden?
very relevant because of what's happening.
Or
I agree with you. I agree with you. But let's say I would be running for president, which I am. Okay. Let's say I'd say, you know what? I'm silent when it comes to abortions. Not my business, not my place. You states do what you want. I'm not going to touch it. Is my view on abortion then relevant?
But
Your
along
view
the same
is-
lines, Lee,
No.
hold on a second.
You
Along
just
those same
stated
lines,
that
there's a
you
former
don't have a
president.
view
Hold on.
it. That is a view.
No, hold on a
No,
second.
I have a
Along
view
those
on
same
it.
lines-
I have a
no,
view on it. I'm saying my view on it's not
Lee,
relevant.
hold on.
I
Lee,
can't do anything.
hold on a
My hands are
second.
tied.
It's really the states.
Lee, hold on a second, because
It's-
along those
Bob
same
says.
lines and on a different issue, but we've kind of alluded to it earlier in the show and everything. There's a former
Yeah.
president that actually has pointed out that one of the issues that we have brought up several times on this show has become an ideological and partisan issue, and that is what President Obama, or former President Obama, is saying about gun ownership. So, do you think that your stance on gun ownership should not be?
You can't compare the two.
There's
you
a
can't
Second
compare the two.
Amendment right
The
for
Bill of
gun
Rights, we have a thing
ownership.
called
I
the
will
Second
agree.
Amendment.
I'll agree with Lee that it's hard to compare the two because one has a Second Amendment that has become a religion in this country.
Amen. Yea, verily.
The abortion issue is different because it's about a person's rights, and that is something that we really have to take into account. It should not be up for debate that it should be a women's right to choose, but in reality, because you have those individuals that don't want to share, or the people on the GOP that are trying to take women's rights away, that's the problem. So that's why when you don't have an opinion on it, it actually matters. When you say you don't want to express it, that means you're saying, well, whatever comes to me, I'm going to sign, or whatever. If it's a state's issue, honestly, it shouldn't even be a state's issue, because
But we do have a thing called the 10th Amendment. Do we not?
It's called a Dobbs said it's a state's issue, guy.
it was actually upheld for 50 plus years until
Jacoby?
Trump
Jacoby?
decided to
Even-
stack the
even
courts
then
with
they knew
I say,
conservatives.
Jacoby, do you care what age I think people should be able to drive?
Do I
That's a
care?
state's issue. Each state can do what they want. It's not the federal government's job. Do you care about speed limits? That's a state's issue.
Speed limit and abortion are completely different.
But they're both silent in terms of whose right they are. So therefore, it's a state's decision.
Not
States makes the
really.
law.
No. You're trying
No.
to say that speed limit and a woman's right to choose are the same in the sense
What
that
I'm trying to say is
be
if
able
it's
to
not
decide
specifically given
what
to
a
the federal
woman can
government,
do.
it's reserved for the states.
No, listen. Just like I was saying, Dan.
I'm not
Does a
comparing
baby
the
have
two.
a right to
I'm not
choose?
comparing the two.
I know, but what you're saying is that a woman's right to choose should be up to somebody to decide other than the woman.
Well, that's because the
No,
infant,
what I'm
the
saying is
child-
it's not the federal
has
government's
the
job
right
to
to.
decide that
Dan,
question. It's a
medically
state
speaking, you're
government.
wrong.
No. The child
Dan,
is a
medically
person when
speaking,
they're
you're wrong.
viable.
An infant, Dan, let's clear this up. At what moment is that child viable outside of the womb?
Well, Supreme Court said that viability was the test. Yeah, that's even in
And
Rome.
when is the child viable?
More and more.
Mark, we should do a show just on this.
Incorrect.
Yeah, we can
Dan,
definitely do a
answer
show
the
on that,
question.
then.
Don't say more and more.
I
Don't
don't
say,
know.
well, the court does.
The
When?
doctors can tell us. We know
So
that.
the
lot of the
doctors
laws
can
have-
tell us when it's
lot of-
viable.
a
So
lot-
if the
a lot of states
doctor
have
can
had-
tell the woman
Will you
when
shut
it's
up and let me
viable,
talk?
then the
Let me talk.
discussion is over
The-
with what your complaint is.
No, it isn't.
Hey, Jacoby, we kind of have to wrap up because we got to get to
So
the
that
other
goes
show
back
and
to when
everything.
a woman can
No, it's like-
decide.
Crap, there could be a
Woman's
legal
rights.
standard
A woman should have
established
the
by a
ability
medical
to decide.
standard.
Should be between a woman
Well, I
and
mean,
a
who's in it?
doctor.
So who protects the baby's interest?
We
Their legal
already
interest.
decided,
Their
Dan.
constitutional
When is
interest.
that child viable?
At
Here's
the
even
point
a
of
better
medical
question.
viability.
Here's even a better question. Dan, do you have a birth date or a conception date?
I have both.
When you celebrate a conception date?
I do every year.
That's a lie.
Bravo,
Man, that shows that you're a
bravo.
liar.
Well
I
done.
do. Happy
It
conception.
should
I-
be
Forget
up
about
to a
birthday.
woman's right to choose.
in
Conception
the
day,
back
that's
of a
the most
car
important
headed
thing.
down into the
The birthday
You go to
is
your exact
nothing.
point.
The-
Hey,
you know, we
hold
can
on a
all
second.
celebrate that.
Time
Well
out
done.
because
I
it's
love
time to
it.
wrap up the show and everything. So time out. Definitely a lively discussion. The only other thing I was getting ready to get to, we can bring this up tomorrow, is apparently Chief Justice Thomas was scolding the justices, his fellow justices, because of their death penalty ruling, and we can get to deal with that some on tomorrow and some of the other issues. But we are getting ready to get out of here because we've got Sasha's show about Ukraine, Russia, and China. So we get ready to get out of here, and we will be back on tomorrow on Wednesday with more lively discussion. So
And happy Conception Day.
You don't even know when yours is.
Yeah, I do.
on that note, we definitely got to get out of here.